of today's meeting. Cool. All right, so just to recap real quick, I would like for everyone on this call, including anybody that's going to watch this at a later date, to be wealthy, right? Once again, wealthy is not about Porsches and fancy clothes and fancy houses and all the material stuff, even though there's nothing wrong with it. I like the material stuff. You're going to drive a car, you might as well drive a nice one. But the reality is most Americans, most people are not in a good spot financially, and they don't know it yet, or they're headed for a bad spot, and they're never going to be able to get off the hamster wheel of active income. Like, if you don't build passive income in some way, shape, or form, you are literally going to have to work until you are no longer able to work before, or you're going to have to work actively until you're no longer able to work, right? And God forbid something bad happens, something unforeseen, and then you're really fucked financially, okay? So I would submit to you that average is not okay, right? So that was number one. Number two, we've got to create some delta. We've got to create some space between our income and our outgo, because that delta, that difference, that is our seed capital in order to build our passive income. If you're never able to create distance between your earned income or your earned income and what it costs you to live, you will forever live paycheck to paycheck. And whether that's at a certain income bracket or it's a higher income bracket, it is not a good place to be. You can make millions of dollars and spend millions of dollars, and you are simply broker at a higher level, right? If you don't believe that, look at professional athletes, look at movie stars, ask MC Hammer, how that program worked out. All right, so today we are actually going to be talking about the fun stuff, right? So we put in the legwork to actually get to this point. Now we're going to be talking about the fun stuff of actually building wealth. Like, you can't do this until you get your expenses under control, until you grow your income and create that difference in your monthly budget between your earned income and your expenses. But this is the fun stuff. So I'm not a financial planner or a financial advisor. I don't play one on TV, so that's my required disclosure there. But what I will share with you is just some things that I've learned, some stuff that I've implemented in my life, and some stuff that I think would help you guys out. So there's a very good book that I would encourage everybody on this call to read if you have not read already, The Richest Man in Babylon. It is a very short read. It's a fable. It's a very easy read. This is something you could read on a Sunday afternoon. It's a relatively cheap book as well. I'll spoil the book for you. Basically, the moral of the story is you want to, the first or the second line item expense in your monthly budget every single month should be the money that you keep for yourself to invest, right? So if you tithe, or you give to your religious organization, do that first. If you don't do that, then invest first. But second would be investing in yourself, right? Pay yourself first. And I know we've all heard that, but I would ask, how many of us actually do that, right? So the simplest way to budget is, hey, I give my tithe, I give my contribution, I pay myself first, and then I force myself to live on whatever is left. And if you don't do that and you just say, hey, I'm going to invest whatever is left, I promise you there's never going to be enough there, right? This is the discipline of kind of like same thing as prospecting. It's the same thing as disciplining your time. I'm going to eat the frog first. I'm going to make the phone calls. I'm going to do the things that I need to do first. And then I'm going to figure out everything else with the rest of my time. Like, I'm going to work out first thing in the morning, and then I'm going to figure out the rest of the day. I'm going to make my calls first thing when I get in the office, and then I'm going to figure out the rest of my day. I'm going to invest in myself first, and then I'm going to figure out how to live on the rest of the money. Okay. So for Irene, for Prince, if he watches this at some point in the future, I would encourage you guys to automate your investing, right? So you guys already know what you're going to be making on a monthly basis, right? And once again, we want to grow that number, but going into the month, so long as Chris has got the money for the check to clear, this is how much I'm going to be making. So you've got the luxury of deciding up front, hey, this is how much I'm going to invest. And then I would encourage you to even set it up with your financial institution, with your investment account, where it just auto drafts your account, just like your cell phone bill does, just like your mortgage does, just like Netflix, just like all these other fucking subscriptions that are siphoning money out of us, right? If we're willing to let them take our money on a monthly recurring basis, let your future take your money on a monthly recurring basis, and your wealth plan take your money on a scheduled recurring basis, right? So let's set up some subscriptions that are actually going to push us forward as opposed to stuff that's just going to drag us back. Now, the goal I would recommend is we want to get to 15% of our take-home pay get invested every single month. Same thing for Grant, Abigail, Mustafa. 15% of your take-home pay gets invested every single month. Now, at the beginning, that's going to seem like a really big number, right? And it probably is. So I would encourage us, let's start small. What is the number? What is the percentage that we can invest every single month? And then what you're going to realize, if you start with 1%, 2%, 3%, 5%, you're going to realize, hey, I didn't die, right? I made it to the end of the month miraculously. Like, we realized, like, we didn't need it out 4 times a night, or like, you know, I skipped the night of drinking, or whatever whatever we're spending our money on. Like, you realize, like, oh, I actually can survive on letting go 5%, 7%, 10, like whatever the number is, wherever we have to start. And then the goal is to keep edging that out until we get to 15%. What you'll also find is that you're probably going to have to make more money than we're currently making, right? Same thing for you guys, Grant, Abigail, Mustafa. Like, for me to get to 15%, holy shit, I can't make 10 grand a month and live on 10 grand a month. I need to make 15, 20 grand a month so that I can invest the amount of money that I need to invest, right? So the goal is 15%. All right, now so Prince, Irene, that stuff is relatively simple for you guys. For us agents, it gets a little bit more complex and it's a little bit more involved. So I have provided to all of you guys a commission spreadsheet. And this commission spreadsheet is the same damn spreadsheet that I use for myself, right? So you guys can do whatever you want with your money, but here's what I would recommend. Anytime you get a commission check, we're going to plug it into this spreadsheet. So we got paid, let's just say we got a check today. We got a check today at 3/15/23. We sold 123 Fake Street. The realtor credit, this is just basically, hey, if I had to cough up any money because like the seller didn't want to do something, or I felt like I had to like cough up my money, I'm just going to put that in there to log it. Because then at the end of the year, you realize like you don't actually have to cough up your commission to make deals work. And holy shit, I gave away 5 grand this year because we just keep coughing up money thinking we have to cough up money to make deals work, right? But let's say after team splits and everything, your gross commission check was $5,000. We're going to put in our ARETC fee so that way we can keep track of those for the calendar year. You can also put in your brokerage renewal date so you kind of know, when that 12-month clock is going to click over. I would encourage you, if you don't already, get direct deposit up, set with the brokerage, because as much as it's cool to get checks, like at the end of the day, it's a waste of time to have to go to the bank. And what this is going to do for you, this is going to split out your paycheck into these different buckets that I would encourage you to think through, okay? So the first one we have is taxes. Pay your taxes. I promise you, the IRS is worse than the mafia. Like, you don't want to owe them money. There was an agent that she's a really good team leader in Hoboken, New Jersey, who gave a talk at the last conference I was at. She literally was about to get foreclosed on her house by the IRS, and she has 4 kids because she didn't pay her taxes for 3 years. So pay your fucking taxes. Like, give Caesar what Caesar's, pay your taxes, pay your taxes, pay your taxes, pay your taxes. I've known people that have gotten tax trouble. It is not fun owing money to the IRS, okay? Next, we've got our business savings. So this is like saving money for Now, the good thing is you guys really don't have that many expenses, but you do have MLS dues. You do have, you've got your MLS dues. You've got your monthly, $50 fee to Action Real Estate. Okay. So that's what the money I'm going to set aside there. Next, we've got our personal account. So this is the money that I actually live on, right? This is like the seed that I get to eat. So I'm going to recommend, you guys can play with these percentages. I'm going to recommend 49% of that is what I actually will, have the ability to spend, right? So this is my monthly budget. These are my groceries. This is all that stuff in the budget that is my normal expenses. Okay. I'm going to recommend a 15% investment. So literally when I get a check in, right, if I get a $5,000 check, I am automatically investing $682.20. Like right off the top, I don't even see it. It hits my account. It goes out the same day. Okay. And then you've got your fun money account. So being disciplined is not fun. It can be a drudge. It can be boring. It can be not sexy. It can be like, hey, everybody else is going out and spending money on shit, and I got to do the discipline stuff because Chris is going to make fun of me if I, have a car note, right? So we need a little bit of blow money of, as long as we're not doing anything immoral, unethical, illegal. Like my fun money is just money that I get to spend on dumb shit, right? If I want to buy the stupid mug at Starbucks, even though I have 7 of them, this is the money that I get to spend on that. Or if I want a new golf club, I get to spend money on this. Or, if I want a Louis Vuitton purse, whatever, that's what you get to spend on that, right? But we're deciding up front, we're being adults, we're deciding up front what portion of our paycheck is going to go towards fun money. And that's what I get to have my fun with. But the rest of it, I'm going to be disciplined about, right? But I'm giving myself a little relief. Now, and then I'm just making these transfers. So I'll go into that in just a sec. I'm just transferring this money to these different accounts. Now, if you've got multiple paychecks that you're cashing at one time, right? Or that'd be a good one, 75 grand. What I would recommend doing, the way you can use this spreadsheet, the way I use this spreadsheet, is you can literally go equals sum of these two, then do that. And then I just drag this across. And then instead of making 20 different bank transfers, I'm able to just make these 6. Any questions on this spreadsheet before I move on? Okay. So once again, I've given you some template categories. I've given you some template percentages. I would recommend, even if you don't go exactly with what I recommend, you have some sort of plan of this is how I'm going to divvy up my money, right? Because what you don't want to be is you don't want to be the agent that makes a whole lot of money, spends a whole lot of money, looks good, smells good, and is broke as a joke. I know those agents. It's not a fun cycle to be on, I promise you, right? And you guys can get super fancy. This is my personal one. So if you guys want to chop it up and have multiple different categories, I've got categories for, how much money I want to invest in stocks, what I want to invest in real estate, how much of this do I want to reinvest into personal development, 3% is discretionary profit, 1% is going to the Disney fund, 1% is going to regular vacation. You can get super complicated with this, right? So I would encourage you, make it your own. But I just try to give you something so that you guys have some sort of template of this is what I can do with my money. Okay. Any questions there? All right. So moral of the story, have a plan for your money, right? Irene Prince, it's a little bit simpler for you guys because you know how much I'm going to make every single month. Grant, Irene, Mustafa, we've got to have a plan, because if you do the work, you do what you're supposed to do, all of a sudden money cometh, right, Grant? And we got to have a plan of how we're going to spend it. Otherwise, you just end up blowing it on dumb shit and whatever pops up in your Instagram feed. And that's not what I want for you guys. Okay. So have a plan for your money. You might also realize when you look at it and you're realizing you're only living off of 49% or whatever percentage you set of your gross income, like, holy shit, I got to make a whole lot more money. And yes, you do, right? All right, so with this said, so we've got these different categories that we're going to be dividing our paycheck up into. I would recommend that we set up a couple different bank accounts to kind of keep this money separated. So a personal checking account, I would imagine everybody on this call has a personal checking account. I would encourage you, Abigail, Grant, Mustafa, to set up a personal savings account, okay? So this is like the money that the personal funds that I'm going to live on. I'm not going to transfer these to my personal checking account, right? Which is more or less my like personal operating account. I'm going to transfer it into a personal savings account. And I'll go through that in a second here. I'm then going to have a tax account. So I'm going to set up a personal savings account that I put all of my tax money into, right? Because that is not my money. So I don't want to commingle those funds. I'm going to set up a personal tax account where I'm going to send that money into there. If you need to set it up at a different bank so that you don't even see it, that's not a bad idea. I know a lot of agents that have done that, but you want to keep that money separated so that way when you have to pay your quarterlies, when you have to pay your year-end tax bill, like that money's there, it's out of the equation. We don't dip into that. Like it's just separate money because it's literally just we're holding that to be able to send it to the IRS and to the state of Virginia. And all of these accounts I'm going through with you guys, you do not have to have like a business entity or a business account, whatever. Like these can all be your personal accounts, right? And I would encourage you when you're starting off, set it up in your personal. Like we can get fancy and have like the LLC and the business checking accounts and all that shit in the future, but like just keep it simple. I also want to set up a business checking account, right? So once again, this can be a personal account in my name, but it is earmarked as my business account. And what I would encourage you guys to do is have all of your business expenses come out of that account. So like my monthly Action Real Estate fee is going to come out of that account. My MLS dues, my RAR dues, my NAR dues, my VAR dues, you know, dues on dues on dues. All of that stuff is going to come out of that checking account. So what that's going to do is going to be able to keep those expenses separate. It's going to make it super easy for you at tax time because literally all of your expenses are going to be in one checking account and all you have to do is print off the bank statements versus having everything come out of your personal account and then it's a fucking nightmare at tax time because you're having to go through and segment, and anybody that's done all that shit, myself included, will tell you it's a nightmare, okay? Next, I may or may not set up a investment savings account, and we'll kind of talk about why that might be a maybe. And then lastly, I'm going to set up a fund money account. So that's like where I'm just going to transfer that fund money. And then when I want to go buy another Starbucks cup, when I want to, you know, buy a golf club, when I want to do whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to transfer that money from the fund money account. So that way, like, once again, I'm not commingling funds. Now, you can set all this up with your bank that you currently bank with. A lot of the banks, like the Wells Fargos, the Chases, the Bank of Americas of the world, the problem that you run into with those guys is they want to have you keep like a minimum of $500 in your checking account, which, you know, we may not want to do. I've got all of my different various bank accounts set up with Ally, A-L-L-Y. It's an online bank account. They typically pay a better interest rate than what you're going to get into Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America. They also allow you to keep zero money in an account and keep that account open with no fees. So like you can keep money in, coming in, going out. You don't have to worry about minimum fees and all that shit. Like I've got my Wells Fargo for my personal checking, and then all of my like bucket accounts, my savings accounts, those are all at Ally. You can also do Capital One. Like there's a bunch of these like online banks out there, but I would encourage you to look into those because they're going to be zero cost. They're going to be the easiest to work with. Okay. And then for our agents, Grant, Abigail, Mustafa, I would encourage you guys to set yourself up on a regular monthly salary, right? So basically what that looks like is I am going to transfer money into that, like my living money into that personal savings account. And then I'm going to decide how much money I need to live every single month, be it 4 grand, 5 grand, like 6 grand, whatever your number is. And then I'm literally just going to set an automatic transfer where I transfer that money every single month, right? So with this, as your income grows, you are not growing your expenses and or your lifestyle unless we make a conscious decision to do that at some point, right? So once again, like, I don't want you guys to have a really good month where you make 20, 30, 10, 20, 30 grand, and then you fucking live on 20, 30 grand because you decide to bowl out of control. I would much rather you guys be disciplined about it and say, hey, look, I'm going to live on 5 grand a month. And whether I make 5 grand a month or 50 grand a month, I'm going to live on 50 or on 5 grand a month, right? Whatever that number is for you guys. And at some point in the future, you may decide, hey, I'm getting married, I'm having kids, my business is going well. Like, I'm going to bump that to 6 grand or 7,500 or whatever the number is. But I would encourage you guys to make the decision in advance, be an adult about it, make a conscious decision. This is how much I'm going to live on every month. And therefore, this is what I'm going to, transfer. I'm going to treat myself as a W-2 employee of my company, and I'm going to have a salary. And I'm going to live off the salary. Anything extra is either fund money or investment, but I'm going to control my expenses because it's very easy in this business to have a really good month and then burn through all the money. And I don't want that for anybody. Okay. Any questions on this before we jump into the actual investments? Cool. All right. There's another book that I'm going to encourage you guys to read. Grant, I think you've already read this one. Irene, I've given you this one. It is called The Simple Path to Wealth. Okay. I'm not going to be able to teach you guys in the next 22 minutes, like everything you'll ever need to know about investing. That is a really good book. That is the best book that I've ever found that really simplifies stock investing. So if you're somebody that's foreign to you, it scares you, like me, I didn't know anything about that. My parents never really taught me anything about that. That is one of the best books that, if I had to pick one book to give somebody, that is the one book that I would give somebody about retirement planning and stock investing. So I would encourage you to read that. Okay. But really what we want to think through is we've finally gotten to the point where we have some capital, we have some money that we can invest. Okay. There's 2 different ways you can do that. You can put that into tax advantage accounts, to basically an account that's set up that's going to give me some sort of tax advantage, or you can do it in non-taxed accounts, meaning like just a simple brokerage account. I'm receiving no tax benefits for that, right? I would encourage you guys to, once again, I'm not a financial advisor, but here's what I do. I maximize all of my tax advantage accounts. And then once I've filled up those buckets for the year as much as I can fill them up, then I'm going to dump the other money into non-tax advantaged accounts. Okay. So this is basically just like the envelopes that we're putting the money into. Okay. So Irene and Prince, if you're ever watching this, I have no clue what this looks like in the Philippines. You're going to have to translate this. But for Irene, I would encourage you and Matt to set up a Roth IRA account if you have not already. Okay. You can contribute up to $6,000 for the year of 2022. You can actually still make contributions now for 2022. And you can contribute individually each $6,500 into your Roth IRAs. Here's the beauty of a Roth IRA. You're going to contribute into it with after-tax dollars. So you're going to pay taxes on the money, whatever's left over, you can contribute into that. That fucker will grow tax-free until you're like 69 and a half, I think, or 65, or till we're a little old and gray. And then all of the money will grow tax-free. And then you can actually you can pull money out of that tax-free. So you're going to put in 6 grand today. It's going to grow to like 80 grand in the future. And then that 80 grand, you're not going to be taxed on that money because we've already paid taxes on it. It's a tax advantage account. It is one of the greatest gifts that Congress, as much as they are fucking idiots, has ever given us, is the Roth IRA. Okay. So definitely take advantage of it. Grant, Mustafa, Abigail, you guys can also, I believe if you're under like $140,000 a year in income, you can also utilize the Roth IRA. Okay. Eventually, when you get to the point where you have an entity set up, you can set up a SEP IRA. So that's personally what my wife and I do. We have a SEP IRA, and that's a self-employed plan. Okay. You can also, Grant, Abigail, Mustafa, I believe you guys are all under the age where you don't have to get your own health insurance plan. Eventually you will. You may want to get a high deductible insurance plan because it's going to be cheaper. The beauty of the high deductible insurance plan, though, is you can set up a health savings account. So here's the cool thing about the health savings account. And this is probably one of the coolest tax advantage accounts either. You get a tax deduction for the money that you put into the health savings account. So literally the $7,500 a year, whatever it is, I don't pay taxes on that money. I get a tax deduction for it. It grows tax-free. And as long as I have qualified medical expenses, I can reduce that money or pull that money out of that health savings account tax-free. So my wife and I we fund our HSA account with non-tax money. It grows tax-free. And then we just save all the receipts for medical expenses, dentist visits, doctor's visits, all that stuff. And then at some point in the future, however much money we have saved in receipts, we'll be able to pull that money out tax-free. And then I think at a certain point, it becomes tax-free anyway at a certain age. So very, very cool. From there, once you maximize all your tax accounts, you're just going to have to go through a brokerage account. So there's no tax advantage, but you're still, setting aside money. Read The Simple Path to Wealth. I would encourage you guys to set it up with Vanguard. And literally you can buy VTSAX, which is the total stock market index. It is a super cheap investment, meaning you're not getting charged a lot by Vanguard to manage that fund. And you're literally buying a small portion of all the top 100 or 500 companies in the stock market. So if investing scares you of hey, that's risky, you're literally just betting on the United States economy by investing in that fund. So long as the United States economy continues to grow, then that money in that fund will continue to grow. And read the book, it'll explain it more. Here's some math for you guys to look at though. And Grant, I think we've talked about this. The 4% rule. Does anybody know what the 4% rule is?
No.
Okay. So the 4% rule basically says that whatever your investment account is, you can afford to live off 4% of that per year without depleting your investment account. So the reason that I say I want you guys to be millionaires at a bare minimum, emphasis on bare, is if you look at a $1 million stock portfolio. So if you say, hey, I've got $1 million saved up, what do you fucking do? You're a millionaire, right? The 4% rule literally says that unless you're just going to start chipping away at the principal, you can comfortably live on 40 grand. I don't think anybody on this call wants to get to their golden ages and have to live off 40 grand a year. I hope you enjoy cat food, right? So basically what you can do is just reverse engineer how much money that you want to be able to live on, and then figure out what is that equated to 4%. So if you say, hey, I want to have $100,000 a year income when I'm retired, I'm going to multiply that by 100, and then I'm going to divide that by 4. You've got to have a $2.5 million stock account to be able to have $100,000 a year income in retirement. We're probably realizing we got some work to do, right? But once again, I want to show you guys this because I'd rather you get this information this stage in your life versus be 50 years old and realize, oh, fuck, I didn't put as much money away as I should have, okay? You can also play with the, and this one's the best one I found, is the retirement calculator on bankrate.com. So all you do is you punch in your numbers here. So Abigail, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21 years old. Okay. How old do you want to be when you retire?
Let's say 50. 50 will work.
50. All right. What is
Ambitious.
your current household income?
I guess right now 0 because I'm not selling no houses yet.
Okay. Let's say 50 grand. All right. So if you make 50 grand a year, how much of that do you think you can comfortably invest towards your retirement every year?
$10,000.
Okay. So that's what, 20%?
Yeah.
So 20%. How much do we currently have saved for retirement?
0.
0. All right. So I'm just going to keep that at 0. How much do you want to live off of when you retire?
$100,000.
All right. So I'm just going to play some numbers here real quick to be able to do this. How long do you plan on living? How long would you like to live?
I would hope to live past 80.
Okay. So 30 years. So based on these current numbers, you would run out of money by the age of 60. Okay. Which might be a little depressing, but let's deal in realities, right? So you guys can play with this calculator and basically reverse engineer, hey, what do I want my life to look like when I retire? How long do I want to live? How much money do I want to be able to retire on? And punch all those numbers in and basically figure out like how much do I actually need to invest every single year to hit my goal. Are we seeing the correlation between this and like CTE and like it's all the same shit, right? We got to figure out what we want. We've got to reverse engineer what it's going to take to get there. And then what do I need to do to be able to do that on a regular basis? Okay. So that's there for you guys. Real estate. Okay. So full disclosure, I have not personally invested in real estate outside of my personal home. So I am speaking from theory, which I'm not a big proponent of, but I just want to include this in here. So first and foremost, if you do not already buy your own home, right? Irene, check that box. Secondly, you guys can house hack. So buy your home, get some roommates, have them subsidize your housing. And then what you can also do is you can buy that home. Once you get that primary residence, like suite mortgage on it, rent that house out, and then 2 years later, go buy another home. And then live in it, rent it out, and then go buy your next home. And just continue to leapfrog. That's a good way to do it. And I promise you that's a lot easier to do before you're married. Because that is something my wife would not be on board with. So if you're single, ready to mingle, like you can basically do what you want. If you're not going to leapfrog, you're just going to go out and buy rentals. You want to find properties that meet the 1% rule, which essentially means that whatever you're buying for the house, you can get 1% of that in your monthly rent payment. So if I'm going to buy a $100,000 house, I'm going to see it rent for $1,000 a month. Okay, that might be a little hard in Metro Richmond, but that's kind of the target that you want to go for. And I've put a, if you guys want a rental property calculator, I can give that to you. And then basically what we're doing is we're figuring out what is going to be our net free cash flow. So what's going to be our cash flow from every single property? And that includes like after I pay the property manager, after I pay the property taxes, after I count for capital expenditures and upkeep and maintenance, so all the shit that comes along with owning rental properties. Like what is my actual cash flow? And then how many of those do I need to where I can get off the hamster wheel that's called real estate sales, right? So here's the deal, guys. The real game is freedom. Has anybody seen Braveheart?
A long time ago.
Yeah. This is the real game. We live in the freest country in the world, but if you are not financially free, you are not fully free, right? The whole game here, in my opinion, my personal game, is to get off the hamster wheel of having to go work. Until you have passive income, you will do this for the rest of your working life until you literally can't fucking work anymore, right? And I promise you, You are not going to be 70 years old and want to jump and go to work because you have to. If you go to work because you want to, that's a different story, right? We may choose that we get to financial independence and we want to continue working, but I promise you, you're not going to want to have to work. You're not going to want to be 60 years old still showing the buyer that wants $15,000 in seller concessions. Like, you're not going to want to be 65 years old sitting home inspections and sitting open houses, right? You're not going to want to be 55 years old still getting on these fucking team meetings that Chris says we got to get on every single week, and God, I got to make my call. Like, so we're gonna do the deal. We're gonna grind, but we're gonna grind with a destination, and this is what we're trying to create, right? Yeah, and I would encourage all of us that we get to a point of financial independence to where literally you don't need the money from the active thing, whatever the active thing is, right? You literally don't need the money to be able to survive, live your life, and do whatever you want to do. And then you get a really fun choice of like, hey, I'm either going to work because I want to work, or I'm just not going to work. And it's a very fun place to be, right? That is the game. That is the goal, okay? So I am going to give everybody some homework. I want to know from you guys at what age you would like to retire and with how much passive income you would like to retire with, right? My personal goal, I want to be done by the age of 50 with an income of $100,000 a year, adjusted for inflation, right? That's my personal goal. So if you're ever like, hey, why is Chris sending me emails Sunday morning at 5:30 in the morning? I am getting out of this game at 50 years old, or I'm getting to a point where I don't have to be in the game. And if I'm in the game, I'm in it for the love of the game, not because I have to, right? So know what the fuck you want, right? We talk about this all the time. The reason we set up vision boards is so we know what we want. And then what I want you to do is I want you to do the math and let me know how much you have to invest every year to actually be able to achieve the goal, right? And then the fun thing becomes like when we're planning, especially, you know, Abigail Musafa Grant, the goal no longer becomes, hey, I want to do all these sales, make all this money so I can whatever. It literally becomes like, this is how much principal I want to invest every single year because I've got this big sexy goal of where I'm going, right? And that's where it really gets fun. It's no longer like, hey, I want to make so much GCI so I look cool and I can tell my parents and I show up on the stupid Richmond magazine. It becomes, hey, I want to generate this GCI because I'm going to set aside this certain percentage and I'm going to invest this much money every year. And if I do that for the next 15, 20, 25, 30 years, whatever the number is, I'm out. Like, peace. You guys have fun. I'm done. Okay? Questions? Beautiful. Guys, we are all in a very lucrative business. Okay? A lot of our parents, grandparents made a lot of sacrifices to get us here, right? I was telling Irene earlier, one of the cool things, Abigail, I don't know your story. I would love to get to know it, but I know Irene, Grant, myself, Musafa, like we are all either zero generation, first generation, or second generation Americans. Like our grandparents are like whatever. They did not come to this country to be average. They didn't sacrifice all the sacrifice they did for us to be an average land. Okay. So let's honor their sacrifice. Let's honor what they did to get us here. Let's take full advantage of the opportunity that is in front of us. Okay. If not for yourself, do it for them. Cool?
Cool.
Rock on.